Imagine a rainy day. You're stuck in traffic. Your throat's parched. You sip from a glass of water. Suddenly, thump, thump. A percussive force ripples, rings across the surface of your water. And even though it has been 67 million years since the KT extinction event, you can't shake the thought that you're about to be eaten alive by a tyrannosaur. Luckily, you know exactly what to do.
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Now that we have your undivided attention, welcome to Jurassic Park, as we break down the innovation, creativity, and straight-up hard work that went into creating the T-Rex Paddock attack. We'll explore how that one scene so heavily influenced CGI techniques and the ripple effect it had on filmmaking overall. Sorry. I couldn't help it. In 1993, Jurassic Park brought dinosaurs to life on the silver screen with a breathtakingly convincing, if not completely faithful, adaptation of Michael Crichton's best-selling novel of the same name. However, Steven Spielberg didn't pull off this feat by genetically manipulating dino DNA, but rather by assembling an A-team of the era's premier special effects houses, Industrial Light and Magic, Stan Winston Studio, and Tippett Studio. Now, most CineFix film fanatics are familiar with the first two legendary shops, but unless you're a stop-motion aficionado, the name Phil Tippett likely leaves you scratching your head. But you're certainly familiar with his work. George Lucas hired him to create the stop-motion clay chess scene on the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars A New Hope, and rehired him to head up Industrial Light and Magic Animation to build the Tauntauns and AT-ATs in Empire Strikes Back. In between the two films, Tippett co-created what would be the final significant advancement in stop-motion technology. In traditional stop-motion, the animation appears unnaturally crisp. This occurs because the motion of the object is actually a series of still frames shot of motionless objects arranged in rapid sequence. The result is undeniably impressive, but doesn't pass as believable due to the lack of motion blur, the momentary image fuzziness that occurs when an object moves faster than the naked eye can track. The animation comes off more human than human, or in this case, more skeleton than skeleton. What Tippett co-created between Star Wars and Empire was a process that approximated this real-world motion blur called Go Motion. Prior to Tippett, motion blur technique consisted of rudimentary hacks such as smearing petroleum jelly on a sheet of glass held in front of the lens, bumping the puppet moments before the still frame is snapped, or lightly jarring the table or background set during exposure. These painstaking processes create minuscule blurs during the individual still shots that, when linked together, roughly scan to the eye as motion blur. Very, very roughly. However, Tippett's revolutionary Go Motion elevated motion blur approximation to new believability by applying ILM's computer-forward approach to filmmaking. Phil's team would create stop-motion puppets around a skeleton of rods attached to motors linked to computers. The animators would move the puppets to the positions they desired, and the computers would record the rod and motor orientation. After sufficient puppet movements were made to execute the desired snippet of an animation sequence, the puppets would be reset to their starting position. Tippett aimed the still camera to shoot, and then triggered the computers to send playback data commands to the motors, making the puppets move as the camera shot a still frame. Since the puppets were going, the motion was captured on film with an authentic blur, hence, Go Motion. Look, Phil was an inventive guy, except when it came to naming his shit. The success of Phil's new technique led him to forming his own company, Tippett Studios, which was hired to animate the ED-209 from RoboCop and won a Primetime Emmy for its work on the 1985 CBS documentary Dinosaur! Thus, it came as little surprise that Spielberg would tap Phil to bring the T-Rex, Velociraptors, Gallimimus, Brachiosaurus, and Dilophosaurus to life for Jurassic Park. As shooting began on August 24, 1992, Spielberg had a clear plan of attack. The dinosaurs would be created on a small puppetry scale by Tippett and on a large animatronic scale by Stan Winston. Then in post-production, Industrial Light and Magic would composite the special effects footage together, as well as apply slight digital painting effects, including an enhancement of the motion blur. Stan Winston Studios had already been hard at work, starting in 1991 on a 25-month pre-production process. By that point in his unparalleled career, Mr. Winston was the unquestioned king of creature building. He won Oscars for Aliens and Terminator 2, he received nominations for Predator, Edward Scissorhands, and Heartbeeps, and gained international renown for 1990's A Gnome Named Norm. That's Norm as in G-N-O-R-M. The G is silent twice. It was a weird time. With apologies to Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Samuel L. Jackson, and Jeff Goldblum, Spielberg knew the dinosaurs would be the true stars of the film, and none loomed larger than the T-Rex in the Paddock scene. In the words of creature designer Shane Mahan, the character had to feel 100% real, or the film just did not work. That's why Spielberg brought on renowned paleontologist Jack Horner to consult with the pre-production team. Spielberg wanted the dinosaurs to be viewed as animals, not B-movie monsters. For the T-Rex, Stan Winston's team initially built a small 1/5 scale sculpture, then sliced it into subsections, projected those subsections onto a wall, traced the outline, and then recut the larger scale wood pieces, which were then bolted to the existing metal armature. The body was then lined with chicken wire and fiberglass and Roma clay and then was sculpted around the framework. This process alone took 16 weeks. The sculpture was then converted into molds into which foam latex was poured to make the skin. Simultaneously, the robotic skeletons were being built around pressurized valves that pushed 60 gallons of hydraulic fluid a minute to move the beast. When at long last the skin was fashioned over the skeleton and painted, the result was over 13,000 pounds of engineering and artistry on a 20-foot tall by 40-foot long remote-controlled frame. In parallel to this process, Tippett suggested to Spielberg that their unprecedented undertaking of bringing dinos to life required a new approach to storyboarding. Rather than having a storyboard artist sketch out static comic book styled images, Tippett proposed he make 3D clay motion animatics to demonstrate the movement of the dinosaurs relative to camera. Spielberg approved, and Tippett set to work. And almost immediately earned the ire of Jack Horner. Jack expressly made it known that dinosaurs should be represented as bird-like, not reptilian, which is why he asked, "Whose stupid idea was that?" when he saw Tippett's claymation animatic of the velociraptor flicking its tongue like a cobra in the kitchen scene. Fully chastised, Tippett and team redoubled their efforts, studying animal motion at zoos in order to perfect dinosaur motion, from tongues to talons. The final result is the animatics of the T-Rex Paddock scene bear a striking similarity to what Spielberg eventually shot, but not striking enough, as Tippett would soon discover. Spielberg appreciated the movement and the rhythm of Tippett's early go-motion raptor tests, but still was left unconvinced that he was looking at a dinosaur. The sentiment was shared by ILM's visual effects pioneer Dennis Muren, who asked Spielberg to allow him to experiment with the technologies they had developed making the T-1000 and Terminator 2. Knowing that his animator Steve Williams had already been working in secret after hours on exactly such a project. Oh, Dennis Muren, you sneaky f***. Using cutting-edge computers from Apple and Silicon Graphics, Muren's team were able to capture the motion of a herd of Gallimimus with unprecedented realism except for one small problem. They were skeletons. Like the liquid metal or plastic surface the T-1000 mimicked in Terminator 2, bone was a far simpler surface to portray than the studded, craggy dinosaur skin. It wasn't until Spielberg saw the screen test of Steve Williams' fully fleshed CGI T-Rex in the harsh light of day that he knew his production and filmmaking had just radically evolved. From then on, if a director could dream it, a computer could create it. ILM's techies had finally harnessed the power of the microprocessor, and making movies would never be the same. When Steven showed Mr. Go-Motion the footage, Phil dryly responded, "I think I'm extinct." Lucky for him, it couldn't have been further from the truth. Spielberg repurposed this line from Malcolm in the Movie,
Don't you mean extinct?
and repurposed Tippett and his animators to work with Muren's ILM to oversee the CGI dinos' body motion, as they were still the preeminent experts. With all the pieces in place, animatronics and CGI to replace the Go-Motion, at last it was time to actually shoot the T-Rex Paddock attack. While principal filming was shot on the Hawaiian island of Kauai, the cast and crew moved to Stage 16 on the Warner Brothers lot to work with the behemoth animatronic T-Rex. The robotic creature took 12 men to operate, and only a little fake rain to ruin. The fine-tuned calibration became unbalanced as the foam latex skin took on water, resulting in the T-Rex getting a bad case of the shakes. Shooting would stop as the T-Rex was dried off with massive fans and chamois until he could move without quivering like a leaf. While the scene features the T-Rex wreaking chaos on its environs, on set it was a tightly orchestrated mechanical ballet. Michael Lantieri was tasked with making the set respond to the T-Rex's rampage, even if for that particular shot, the T-Rex was completely absent and would be added later via CGI. He and his team rigged the Paddock restraining wires to snap, the fence posts to cant towards the car, the Jeep to crush like a sardine can, and even the water cup to ripple with practical on-set effects. The rippling water was just a cup they rigged to a guitar string that was plucked by a man hiding beneath the Jeep. Oh, movie magic. Yet to Spielberg's eye, the interaction of the CGI T-Rex tossing around the real-world Jeep like a hockey puck still didn't scan. As before, ILM saved the day. The original Jeep was digitally painted out and replaced with a CGI Jeep mocked up completely from scratch. But this paled in comparison to the heavy lifting they were about to undertake in post-production. After Spielberg saw an early cut of the film, he felt confident enough to go direct Schindler's List, and what must be the most dramatic directorial back-to-back tonal shift in history. In his stead, he left one of his director buds who knew a thing or two about visual effects himself, George Lucas. Lucas's employees at ILM had of course already scanned in Stan Winston's dinosaurs into their servers, arranged it into data with a program called Alias, used soft image 3D to assign joint placement on the dinos, rigged up the digital armatures to manipulate those joints into motion, and then used ViewPaint to illustrate the skin texture and map it over the data in the computer. But now, they had to do it for every CGI shot in the movie, not just a 2-second screen test shorter than most modern day GIFs, GIFs, whatever. I hate technology. Initially, Phil Tippett's team worked with ILM's animators and were retrained to use the computer programs to clack away at the keyboards to digitally illustrate the T-Rex's movement. However, the traditionally hands-on Tippett compared this to animating while wearing boxing gloves. By now, you know he's not one to give up on a problem, and he devised an ingenious solution. Modify his Go Motion puppets into being dinosaur input devices. With a few software tweaks, now when his team of animators moved the puppets, it sent their positional data into ILM's computers, which then adjusted the graphically rendered CGI dinos accordingly. With the method of animation settled, there came the logistical issue of putting the computers to work, processing the data into images. Despite having assembled the most turbocharged suite of computer graphics in history, each shot in the T-Rex Jeep chase sequence took 12 hours to render. For reference, this clip where the T-Rex breaks through the log is 75 frames long. That was 12 hours to render. And you just watched in what, like 3 seconds? Rude. After the CGI itself was rendered, it needed to be composited together with live-action shots involving the actors. The entire process of CGI building and compositing lasted from May of 1992 to May of 1993, but at long last, the scene was translated to film. Spielberg was so impressed by the CGI that he changed the ending of the movie mid-production to feature the T-Rex battling raptors, saying the audiences would hate him if he didn't give them another view of the film's superstar. George Lucas was so impressed by the CGI that he said it inspired him to finally make the Star Wars prequels. God damn it. Because of the techniques the Jurassic Park team came up with in the T-Rex Paddock scene and how successfully they were executed, nearly every blockbuster summer tentpole relies on a blend of CGI and practical effects to this day. But few, if any, hold up against the originator of them all, when Spielberg and ILM revolutionized filmmaking forever, back in 1993 when CGI dinosaurs ruled the earth. We've geeked out on dinosaurs enough for today, but we hope you guys are happy to see new episodes of Art of the Scene, so subscribe to CineFix on your way out, or if you had unsubscribed for spite, now's a great time to resubscribe. And also, let us know in the comments below what you'd like to see on a future episode. Thanks for watching.